Today, I am going to beg you to write about your life. I know begging isn't cute, but I'm going to do it anyway because this one thing changed my life more than any therapy or any retreat or any amount of kale. And my friend, I have consumed a whole lot of kale. Now, when I talk about writing, I'm talking about the messy, complicated, not sure how it ends story of your actual life. The stuff that you carry around, but you rarely say out loud, that stuff. So if you're new to me, hi, I'm Chris. I'm a New York Times bestselling author and wellness coach, and I've been living with stage 4 cancer for over 20 years now, which gives you a lot of time to try stuff that might actually help. And here's the sitch. I did not set out to be a writer. I actually stumbled into it because I was desperate. All right, so let's go back through space and time. Right after my diagnosis, I was in my apartment in New York City and my phone would not stop ringing. Friends and family and colleagues and people who'd heard through the grapevine what was going on in my life. Everybody wanted to know, how are you? What's happening? What did the doctors say? Is there anything that they could do for me? And I would tell them. I'd tell them about Valentine's Day because that's when I was diagnosed. I'd tell them about being stage 4, about no cure and no treatment. And every single time I told that story, I felt my diagnosis all over again. It was as if I was re-traumatizing myself on repeat, reliving the worst moment of my life as a courtesy to everyone who cared about me. And one day, I just ran out of steam. I could not do it anymore. So I did what any exhausted person would do, and I just wrote it all down in a mass email, and I emailed everybody. Done. Told them about it. And that is how the Crazy Sexy Cancer updates started. They were mass emails. They were very casual and a little spicy. And they were my way of keeping people looped in without having to keep reopening the wound. But something unexpected happened. People started writing back. They told me that my emails were so funny and heartfelt and that they were even inspiring. But here's what surprised me. Writing was actually helping me. I felt lighter every time I hit send, like I was finally making sense of what was actually happening to me. A few months later, I went to a Zen monastery in New Mexico. Now, hold up. A Zen monastery was the last place I'd have gone before this shit show went down. If there wasn't an open bar, no thanks. But cancer has a way of reshuffling your priorities. Truth is I needed to get my head on straight. I needed to calm down my revved up nervous system and to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life, however long that turned out to be. So there I was living in this tiny little room, tiny little bed, little desk, one chair, and I was eating all of my meals with the monks, meditating with them 3 times a day. And in between, I was looking for something to work on, a project, something creative that might help me make sense of things or at least help me feel better. And that's when I saw it. In the back of Glamour magazine, one of the only non-Buddhist things that I had with me, there was a call for submissions for an essay contest. And I think the prize was like $500 or a feature in the magazine. It didn't matter. What mattered was that it was a project, somewhere to put all the chaos bouncing around in my head. And writing felt like the only way to make sense of it. So I sat at that tiny desk in that tiny room with one chair, and I started to write about my diagnosis, about being young and single and scared and refusing to let cancer define me. I wrote about what I was learning and unlearning and the hell that had just happened to me. And I worked on that essay for weeks, maybe even months. I didn't win. I don't even remember how I found out. Probably just silence, crickets. I wasn't crushed. I was defiant. My first thought was, it's not that I'm not good enough. It's not that my story isn't good enough. It's that this contest is too small for me, which might sound arrogant, I know, but it wasn't ego. It was something deeper. Call it instinct, call it an inner knowing. Something clicked. This wasn't meant to be a 500-word essay buried in the back of a magazine. This was bigger. Look, I'd been a storyteller my whole adult life, film and TV and theater and commercials, but I'd always been telling other people's stories. Now it was time to tell my own. So I borrowed a camera and I started filming. I had no idea what I was doing, but I've also never been afraid to build and fly a plane at the same time. Same thing happened with my book. I leveraged the film deal to get a book deal, and I figured it out as I went. And that essay became a documentary, and that documentary became a book, and that book became 7 books, a whole career and life I'd never planned. But it wasn't the book deals or the platform that changed me. It was the process. Writing became the single most powerful tool I've ever used for my own healing. Now, here's what I've learned about myself, and maybe this is true for you too. I don't always know what I think until I write it down. I don't always know how I feel or what I want until I write it down. And sometimes it's hard for me to get clear or make a decision until I put those words on the page. Some people are quick. They speak off the cuff. They know where they stand in any given moment about everything. That is not me. I need to chew and crunch and digest and chew and crunch and digest again because I am a processor, and writing is how I process. All right, let's get nerdy for 1 sec. Have you ever heard of the Oracle of Delphi? It's basically the original life coach, an ancient Greek temple where people would travel from all over the ancient lands looking for guidance on their biggest life decisions. But before you could get any answers, you had to pass these words carved in stone. Know thyself. Self-knowledge first, then wisdom. That was the deal. And Socrates took it even further. And he said this: the unexamined life is not worth living. Now, I think that might be a little intense, but Socrates was an OG. And I think that's what writing does. It's how you examine your life. The page mirrors back what actually is going on, not just the story you've been telling everyone, but the truth underneath that story. And why does that matter? Because you can't change what you can't see. You just keep reacting or repeating patterns, making decisions based on fear or habit or what you think you're supposed to do. So if you're thinking, okay, Chris, but I am not a writer. Neither was I already told you that. I was an English major, not using her degree, sending mass emails from her apartment because she couldn't handle another phone call. You don't need to be ready for this. And you don't need anyone's permission, including mine. But if something's holding you back, here are 3 things worth remembering. Number 1, the most important letters behind your name are life, all caps. You don't need credentials, an MFA, a publishing deal, or anyone's approval. Your life, your actual messy, magnificent, beautiful life is the qualification. Your stories, experiences, and personality, that's the stuff that nobody else has. If you've lived, you have something to say, and chances are someone out there also needs to hear it. Number 2, write it raw. Your voice is your most valuable asset, so don't censor it or polish it into something unrecognizable, boring beige. Okay? And I get it. You sit down to write and suddenly you're trying to sound like a real writer. Bring me my blazer. You get stiff and use words that you've never actually said out loud. And then you wonder why it feels dead on the page. Say it the way that you would actually say it. The way you tell your best friend over coffee. That's the stuff that people connect to the most. Nobody wants the cleaned up, smart sounding version of you. They want the warts and the wisdom. And if you're stuck, try this. Go for a walk and record yourself talking it out. And then write what you said. Number 3, beginner's mind is a gift. If you've never done this before, great. You're like fresh virgin snow. Okay? You don't have a bunch of bad habits to unlearn. You're not jaded or trying to protect some image of yourself. You get to come to this completely new. Lucky, fabulous you, really. So Don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. And don't compare what you're doing to something you've already done before in the past that you think may have been better. Okay? You're exactly where you need to be. Now scoot on in a little closer. So if you're thinking, okay, Chris, I want to try this. I am hosting a free live workshop that goes so much deeper. It's called Right to Heal, Change Your Story, Change Your Life. And you're going to learn why it's your stories, not your thoughts, that are running the real show. Why you can't think your way out of this stuff, and believe me, I have tried. And what happens when you finally write it down and free up the energy to create what's next. This is the work that changed my life, my friends, and I would love for you to join me. Link is in the description. Come. All right, look, you don't need a dramatic diagnosis to have a story worth telling. You don't need to win a contest or write a book or share it with anyone either. You just need to be willing to explore the truth and texture of your own life. So I am begging you, find your tiny room, find your one chair, and start writing.